Hello, thank you for stopping by this channel. This channel is designed to give a free immigration advice to help you out with the immigration process, because I know how it can be complicated from my personal experience and from helping many other immigrants to do everything right. So today in this video I wanted to talk about asylum, because I noticed I've done a few different videos on asylum process, how to apply for the asylum first of all, how to write a statement, not exactly how to write a statement, but sort of the guidelines that you need to follow to, make the best of the statement, because it's very important whenever it comes to asylum. And I've noticed a lot of misconceptions whenever it comes to asylum in general. A lot of people do not understand what asylum is. And it's really no surprise, because in today's if you look into the news and if you follow the news and all the politics and what's going on here in the United States, all of this, people talk about border crisis and asylum seekers and all of that sort of stuff. It becomes confusing. People don't understand what asylum is. People on the news don't understand what asylum is because they don't have experience in immigration process stuff. And even if you do get to actually Google the definition of asylum, the very first thing that comes up, it really makes no sense, because it says protection granted by a nation to someone who has left their native country as a political refugee, which really does not make any sense, because there is a clear distinction between the refugee and the asylum. Asylee, the person who is claiming asylum, and the whole difference is where you are claiming it from, because asylum is based on that protection. So this first part is correct. You are claiming that protection from the country where you're claiming it, based on race, based on religion, nationality, membership in certain groups, political opinion. It's probably one of the hardest ones to prove, but still, it's based on that. You can claim. But the difference is that you claim asylum when you are in the country where you're claimed. So you enter the country first. There is no claiming asylum from outside of the country. That's why whenever I watch the news and they talk about, asylee people, trying to get asylum from outside of the United States who are at the border, or outside of the border, obviously they are outside of the country. It just doesn't make absolutely any sense, because that is the clear distinction. Those people are not asylees. They are asking for a refugee status because they want to immigrate to the United States while they are outside. But refugee, they have, because it's a completely different thing now. There are very, very strict, very specific guidelines whenever it comes to refugees. It's a whole complete different process. It's a whole complete different discussion. So at the end of the day, whenever it comes to asylum, it's only for people who already are, and since we're talking about the United States of America, is for people who are already in the United States of America. Now, whenever it comes to obviously coming here, it also very much determines how the process of your asylum will go, right? Did you come here legally? Did you come here on a visa? Did you apply within the first 6 months since you come here to the United States? Did you wait until your visa expired, or it wasn't expired before you applied, right? All of these things are taken into consideration. Obviously, if you crossed the border illegally, or you came here with a non-immigrant visa and then you claimed asylum, meaning that you want the immigrant status now, or your visa expired and now you're claiming asylum after your visa expired, or you've been here for 6 months, more than 6 months, your visa may be still active, but you've been here longer than 6 months. All of these things, they do determine how the process is going to work out, right? So you will be called for an immigration interview, right, with an asylum officer who is an expert in these things. And obviously, if you cross the border illegally and you are in the country illegally and now you are claiming this asylum status, obviously you will have a much different set of questions, and they will be much tougher, because obviously you already broke the law. You already showed the United States that you cannot follow the process, because following the process is obviously getting into the country legally, right? And the same thing goes if you had an expired visa. Again, it shows that you're not serious about the process. You take breaking the rules lightly. It's not good. Now, whenever it comes to the 6 months situation, I always tell that to people. If you want to apply for something as serious as an asylum, there is really no thinking, right? Because asylum is based on protection that is being granted, protection from persecution. Now, persecution based on race, based on religion, based on nationality. Persecution meaning that your life is in danger based on race, based on religion, based on nationality. Your family is in danger. Your property, right? Something very serious that is in danger. You are being persecuted. Your life is threatened. Your family is threatened. Your relatives' lives threatened. Stuff like that, based on all of these things, like race, religion, nationality, and stuff like that. So whenever it comes to something like that, something as serious as that, as serious as persecution, there is really no thinking. And that's where that 6 months come into play, because if you come in here and you don't apply within the first few months, and you wait and wait, you wait more than 6 months, you wait a year or two, whatever, it doesn't matter, and then you apply, obviously in the mind of the immigration officer who will be taking your interview, really just like in anybody else's mind, it's a very rational question. Why didn't you apply right away? Why were you waiting? What were you thinking? Were you thinking to maybe go back? Were you thinking to not claim the asylum here? Why you didn't apply right away? It's a very rational question. It definitely makes sense, because if you are running away from persecution, then you want to, obviously you do not second guess going back to that country, right? Obviously you want protection from this country that you're here in now, and you know that in the United States, the freedoms and opportunities, all of these things, and you do want those things. You didn't have them in your country, so why would you wait? All makes sense, all definitely rational questions. Now, there are two different types of an asylum, and by the way, this website right here that I have open is, if you haven't watched any of the videos on this channel, I always point to this website and this website only, and it's uscis.gov. I will put the link in the description below. It is an official United States Citizenship and Immigration Services website. Really, everything that ends with .gov means government, right? Those websites are directly from government, and you can trust them. You can take information from there. I would not recommend to rely on information from anywhere else. As you can see, what I'm saying right now is from here, from the USAS. All of the applications that I provide are directly from USAS and nothing else. There are a lot of companies out there that maybe want to help you, I don't know, for free, I don't know. But there are companies, obviously, like immigration attorneys who want to help you for money. But before you do all of that, do your research, because this is your case. You are responsible for it. So one more thing I wanted to mention about the asylum. There are two types of asylums. There's an affirmative asylum processing, and there is a defensive asylum processing. Now, whenever it comes to affirmative asylum process, obviously just like in any case, you must be physically present in the United States. You may apply for asylum status regardless of how you arrived in the United States or your current immigration status. Yes, it says you can apply, but it doesn't mean that, if you overstay your visa, for example, and then apply, that you will be treated the same way. You will be treated the same way, in the same fair way like everybody else, but that fairness is going to be based on whether you were able to follow the rules and apply on time without breaking any laws, without breaking any rules. Makes sense, right? So you must apply for asylum within 1 year of the date of their last arrival in the United States. I have mentioned that, but nevertheless, 6 months is that sweet spot. I don't know if I can say that. Don't wait longer than 6 months, because there really is no reason, right? So overall, affirmative asylum processing basically is where you come in to the United States, everything is fine, and then you apply for asylum. Makes sense. Defensive asylum processing is a little bit more complicated. Nothing to be scared of. It happens. It can happen based on you even filing for asylum as an affirmative asylum processing, right, in the first place. Defensive asylum processing is when you are put into the removal proceedings, when you're placed into the removal proceedings, whenever you are, scheduled basically for deportation. And I know it sounds bad, but it might happen. Be prepared for it. For example, a few cases that I have, a few of my friends, people who I helped out with that stuff, because they, it happens. You go for an interview with an asylum officer, right, immigration officer, and you don't have certain documents. You are not able to prove your case. You're not able to do something. It happens. Your case gets denied. Guess what happens? It goes for the deportation, for the removal proceedings. That's what they're called. And then, in that case, obviously the next stage is to go from that executive branch, right, immigration, to judicial branch, go to the court, and that's where you file that withholding of removal case. Basically, it's another, not really another, it's the same asylum case, but now it goes to the court, and now you are not proving your case to the immigration officer, you are proving your case to the judge, and then there will be an immigration officer there to cross-examine you, to ask you questions. And obviously for there, if you fail to provide some documentation, if you fail to provide some evidence, or whatever your case was denied based on, that's your basically a second chance to provide that information. So again, if there are a few things that you want to take away from this video, is always get your sources directly from .gov websites. USCIS.gov is really, the immigration services in the United States, they did an amazing job putting this website together. Everything is there. You can understand everything. You can read everything. So it's really good. And there are different languages available. If your English is not that great, you can translate. Start learning English. But on this website, you can definitely translate some things, and and another thing is that whenever it comes to asylum, it's always from within the United States, obviously in our case, because we're talking about the asylum in the United States. It is not from the outside. There is no such thing as claiming asylum from the outside of the United States. Whatever you hear on the news, the asylum seekers behind the border and stuff like that, it just makes absolutely no sense, because those people are not educated whenever it comes to the immigration and how it works. And the last thing, as I always say, well, in my past few videos, as I always mentioned, this channel is all about helping you realize that this is very important. Obviously, whenever it comes to the immigration process, is something that impacts our lives. I personally been through that myself. Took me 11 years, the whole process, and I know the people who took longer than that, some shorter than that, some longer than that, but average is probably about 10 years. This whole process takes time, but the point is, you are responsible for that process. And I want you to understand that, because the sooner you understand it, the easier it will be. If you do not give out this case to somebody and expect somebody to do something for you, you will be much better off. Stay on top of your case, do your own research, and if you have any questions, if you have any requests on whatever topics, whenever it comes to the immigration, you can ask me. I'm not an attorney, a license, or anything like that. Everything I try to stick to the sources directly from the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services website, nothing outside of that, and all the advice that I give is based on my personal experience and the experience of people that I know who've been through the immigration process. Thank you very much for watching. If that was helpful, please subscribe. As you can see, it's still a new channel, still growing, and if you have requests, definitely let me know in the comments below and I will be happy to address them.